The sound of Alexander's key turning in the front door at 11:47 p.m. should have been normal. Sarah had been married to him for 12 years, and his late nights were nothing new. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the way he burst through the door with wild eyes and grabbed her arm felt like a nightmare coming to life. "Get up, get the kids, now." His voice was sharp, cutting through the peaceful silence of their suburban home like a blade. Sarah sat up in bed, her heart already racing. "Alex, what's wrong? What happened?" "Just do what I say. Get Emma and Tyler, take them to the backyard, stay there until I tell you to come back in." The urgency in his voice made her stomach drop. Was there a break-in, a gas leak? Her mind raced through possibilities as she stumbled out of bed, still in her pajamas. "Alexander, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "Sarah, I don't have time to explain, please. Just get the kids and go outside. Take your phone, but stay quiet. Don't come back in until I text you." Something in his tone made her blood run cold. This wasn't fear for their safety. This was something else entirely. But her children's safety came first, so she hurried to their rooms. 8-year-old Emma was easy to wake, but 10-year-old Tyler was harder to rouse. Both children were confused and scared as Sarah wrapped them in jackets over their pajamas and led them through the kitchen to the back door. "Mom, why are we going outside?" Emma whispered, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Daddy needs us to wait out here for a little while," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice calm even though her hands were shaking. The October night was cold, and the backyard felt enormous and dark. Sarah pulled her children close to her on the patio furniture, all three of them shivering. She kept checking her phone, waiting for Alexander's text, but none came. Then she heard it, a car door slamming in their driveway, but Alexander's car was already there. She had seen it when they came outside. A woman's laugh echoed from inside their house. High-pitched, carefree, completely at odds with the terror Sarah felt in her chest. The pieces began clicking together in her mind like a terrible puzzle. The late nights, the business trips that seemed to happen more and more often. The way Alexander had been distant for months. The strange charges on their credit card that he always had explanations for. "Mommy, I'm cold," Tyler whispered. Sarah wrapped her arms tighter around her children, but she couldn't stop staring at the warm light spilling from their kitchen window. Through the glass she could see shadows moving. 2 people, Alexander and someone else. Her phone buzzed, finally the text she had been waiting for. "Stay outside for 2 more hours. Don't come in no matter what you hear." 2 hours. Her children were supposed to sit in the cold October night for 2 more hours while another woman occupied their home. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Alexander hadn't been protecting them from danger. He had been clearing them out so he could bring his mistress into their home, into their bed. Emma started crying softly, and Tyler was asking questions Sarah couldn't answer. How could she explain that their father had just kicked them out of their own house so he could be with another woman? Sarah's phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Alexander. "Unknown number, sorry about this. He said you knew about us." "I wouldn't have come if I knew you didn't know." The woman inside her house was texting her. The woman who was probably in her kitchen right now, maybe wearing one of Sarah's robes, maybe eating food from Sarah's refrigerator. Sarah's hands shook as she typed back, "How long has this been going on?" The response came quickly, 2 years. "He told me you were separated and living in different parts of the house. He said you were getting divorced soon." 2 years. For 2 years, Alexander had been living a double life. For 2 years, he had been lying to both of them. "Mom, can we please go inside? I really need to use the bathroom," Emma whispered. Sarah looked at her daughter's scared face and felt something break inside her chest. Not just her heart, but something deeper. Her trust. Her faith in the man she had loved for 12 years. Her belief that no matter what problems they had, Alexander would never hurt their children. But here they were, sitting in their own backyard in the middle of the night, kicked out like unwanted guests. "We'll go to Aunt Lisa's house," Sarah said quietly. "Go get in the car." She wasn't going to sit outside her own home for 2 hours. She wasn't going to let her children suffer while Alexander played house with his girlfriend. As she buckled Emma and Tyler into the car, Sarah took one last look at her house. The house where she had planned to grow old with Alexander. The house where she had thought they were building a life together. The woman's silhouette moved past the living room window, and Sarah felt something she had never felt before. Not just anger or hurt, but a cold, calculating determination. Alexander thought he could humiliate her like this. He thought he could throw away 12 years of marriage and traumatize their children for his selfish desires. He was about to learn how wrong he was. As Sarah drove toward her sister's house with her sleeping children in the backseat, she began planning. Not just her escape from this nightmare, but her revenge. Alexander had just made the biggest mistake of his life, and Sarah was going to make sure he paid for every single moment of pain he had caused. The woman who had texted her might be sorry now, but sorry wasn't going to fix the trauma her children would carry from this night. Sorry wasn't going to give back the 2 years of lies. Sorry wasn't going to heal the devastation Alexander had just caused. But justice might. Sarah woke up on her sister Lisa's couch with a stiff neck and the crushing weight of reality settling on her chest. For a split second, she thought it might have been a nightmare. Then she saw Emma and Tyler sleeping peacefully in Lisa's guest room, and everything came flooding back. The morning sun streaming through Lisa's windows felt wrong. How could the world look so normal when her entire life had been destroyed in a single night? Coffee! Lisa appeared in the doorway, already dressed for work. Her face was tight with concern and barely controlled anger. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice yet. She followed Lisa into the kitchen, where the smell of coffee mixed with the familiar scent of Lisa's vanilla candles. Everything felt surreal, like she was living someone else's life. "The kids are still sleeping," Lisa said, handing Sarah a steaming mug. "Emma woke up once asking for you, but she went right back to sleep when I told her you were nearby. I need to call their school. Tell them they won't be in today." Sarah's voice came out hoarse, like she had been screaming, though she couldn't remember raising her voice at all last night. "Already done. I called and said there was a family emergency." Lisa sat down across from Sarah at the small kitchen table. "Now tell me everything, and I mean everything." Sarah told her sister about the midnight awakening, about sitting in the backyard with the children, about the text from the other woman. With each detail, Lisa's face grew darker. 2 years, Lisa said when Sarah finished. "That bastard has been lying to you for 2 years. I feel so stupid. How did I not know? How did I not see the signs? Because you trusted him, because you're a good person who doesn't automatically assume the worst about people. That's not stupidity, Sarah, that's love. And he took advantage of it." Sarah's phone had been buzzing all morning with calls and texts from Alexander. She had ignored them all, but now Lisa grabbed the phone and scrolled through the messages. "Listen to this garbage," Lisa said, reading aloud. "Sarah, you're overreacting. We need to talk about this like adults. And this one, you're confusing the children by keeping them away from home. The nerve of this man." Sarah felt her anger building again, the same cold fury she had felt last night. "He's making it sound like I'm the problem, like I'm the one who did something wrong. Of course he is. That's what cheaters do. They blame everyone but themselves." Lisa set the phone down and leaned forward. "What do you want to do?" "I mean really want to do. I want him to pay. I want him to understand what he's done to our family. I want him to lose everything, the way he made me lose everything. Then that's what we'll make happen. But first you need to protect yourself and the kids. Do you have access to your bank accounts?" Sarah grabbed her purse and pulled out her wallet. She tried to log into their joint account on her phone, but her password didn't work. "He changed it," she said, staring at the screen in disbelief. "He changed our banking password." Lisa's expression turned murderous. "How much money is in that account?" "About $40,000. It's our emergency fund, and the money for Tyler's summer camp and Emma's dance classes. We're going to the bank right now. I can't leave the kids. The kids are coming with us. They need to see that you're fighting for them. And you need to move fast before he empties that account completely." Lisa was right. Sarah had spent years being the accommodating wife, the one who didn't make waves, the one who trusted Alexander to handle their finances. But that version of herself had been kicked to the curb last night along with her children. An hour later, Sarah sat in the bank manager's office with Tyler and Emma coloring quietly beside her. The manager, Mrs. Patterson had known Sarah for years and was visibly upset as Sarah explained the situation. "I can freeze the joint account until this gets sorted out legally," Mrs. Patterson said. "But I have to tell you, he withdrew $15,000 yesterday afternoon." Sarah felt like she had been punched in the stomach. "15,000, what for?" "The withdrawal slip just says personal expenses." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Williams." Personal expenses. He had taken $15,000 from their children's future to pay for his affair. To pay for hotel rooms and gifts and dinners with his mistress, while Sarah clipped coupons and worried about their budget. "Mom, are you okay?" Emma looked up from her coloring book with worried eyes. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just taking care of some grown-up stuff." But Sarah wasn't fine, she was furious, and she was done being the victim in this situation. After the bank, they went to see Michael Torres, the family lawyer Lisa had recommended. He was a serious man in his 50s with kind eyes and a reputation for fighting hard for his clients. "I want full custody," Sarah said before he could even finish introducing himself. "I want the house. I want him to pay for what he's done." "I understand you're angry, and you have every right to be. But let's talk about what's realistic and what's going to be best for your children in the long run." "What's best for my children is getting them away from a father who would throw them out of their own house in the middle of the night for his mistress." Michael Torres leaned back in his chair and studied Sarah's face. "Tell me everything, start from the beginning." Sarah told the story again, watching the lawyer's expression change as she described the midnight eviction and Alexander's financial manipulation. "This is good," he said when she finished. "Not good that it happened, but good for your case. Forcing minor children from their home in the middle of the night to accommodate an extramarital affair is not going to look favorable for him in court. What else do I need to do?" "Document everything. Every text message, every phone call, every interaction. Get copies of all financial records. And don't go back to that house alone. If you need to get personal items, take someone with you or ask for a police escort." Sarah felt a chill at the thought of going back to the house, where Alexander had humiliated her. But she would have to face it eventually. She would have to walk through those rooms where he had betrayed their family. When they left the lawyer's office, Tyler was quiet, but Emma was full of questions. "Are we going to live at Aunt Lisa's forever?" "No, baby, we're going to find our own place soon." "Is Daddy going to live with us?" Sarah knelt down to Emma's level, choosing her words carefully. "Daddy and Mommy are going to live in different houses for a while, but you and Tyler will always be loved and taken care of." "Did Daddy do something bad?" Sarah looked into her daughter's innocent eyes and felt her heart break all over again. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that her father chose another woman over his family? How do you preserve a child's ability to trust when the person who should have protected her has betrayed everyone she loves? "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt other people," Sarah said finally. "But that's not your fault, and it doesn't change how much Mommy loves you." That night after the children were asleep, Sarah sat on Lisa's couch with her laptop, beginning the process of documenting her marriage's destruction. She made copies of text messages, printed bank statements, and wrote down every detail she could remember from the past few months. As she worked, she felt herself changing. The woman who had sat in that backyard last night, confused and scared, was disappearing. In her place was someone stronger, someone who wouldn't be pushed around or manipulated. Alexander had made his choice. Now Sarah was going to make hers, and she was going to make sure that when this was all over, he understood exactly what he had lost. 3 days after the midnight betrayal, Sarah stood in front of her childhood bedroom mirror at Lisa's house, barely recognizing herself. The woman staring back had dark circles under her eyes and a hardness in her expression that hadn't been there before. But there was also something new, a strength she had never known she possessed. Her phone buzzed with another text from Alexander. "Sarah, this is ridiculous. The kids need to come home. We can work this out." She deleted it without responding, just like she had deleted the previous 27 messages. Alexander was getting desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. Sarah was counting on it. "Mom, can we go get my soccer cleats today?" Tyler asked from the doorway. He had been asking about his belongings every day, but Sarah wasn't ready to face the house yet. "Maybe tomorrow, sweetie. Aunt Lisa said she has some old cleats that might fit you for practice this week." Tyler's face fell, and Sarah felt another stab of guilt. Her children were suffering because of Alexander's choices, but they were also suffering because of hers. The difference was that her choices were about protecting them. Emma appeared beside her brother, holding her tablet. "Mom, there's a lady at the door asking for you." Sarah's blood ran cold. Had Alexander sent his mistress here? She hurried to the front window and peered through the blinds. A woman in her 30s stood on Lisa's porch, holding a manila envelope. She was tall, blonde, and absolutely not the type of woman Sarah had imagined Alexander would cheat with. "Stay here with the kids," Sarah told Lisa, who had appeared in the hallway. Sarah opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Can I help you?" "Are you Sarah Williams? I'm Jennifer Mason from Hartwell Insurance. I think your husband has been lying to both of us." The name clicked. Hartwell Insurance was where Alexander worked. This woman was a colleague, not a client. Sarah removed the chain and opened the door wider. "What do you mean?" Jennifer held up the envelope. "I mean Alexander has been using company funds to pay for his personal expenses. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, jewelry purchases. And he's been forging your signature on insurance policies." The world tilted sideways. "Forging my signature. Can we sit down? This is going to take a while to explain." Sarah led Jennifer into Lisa's living room, her mind racing. Financial infidelity was one thing, but fraud was something else entirely. Jennifer opened the envelope and spread out several documents on the coffee table. "I'm the compliance officer at Hartwell. Part of my job is to audit employee expense reports and flag unusual activity. Alexander's reports have been raising red flags for months." Sarah stared at the papers. Restaurant receipts for meals that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Hotel stays in cities where Alexander had claimed to be visiting clients. Jewelry purchases from stores she had never heard of. "But what does this have to do with my signature?" "He's been taking out insurance policies on high-value clients and listing you as a beneficiary without your knowledge or consent. Then he's been borrowing against those policies and using the money for personal expenses." Sarah felt sick. "How much money are we talking about?" "Based on what I've found so far, around $60,000 over the past 2 years. 2 years? The same time frame as his affair. Alexander had been stealing from his company to fund his double life, and he had been using Sarah's identity to do it. Why are you telling me this? Shouldn't you be reporting it to the police?" Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. "The company is handling it internally for now, but if he can't pay the money back immediately, they will press charges. I thought you should know because your name is on some of these documents." "My name is on documents I never signed for money I never sought to pay for an affair I didn't know about," Sarah said slowly, letting the full scope of Alexander's betrayal sink in. "I'm sorry, I had no idea you weren't aware of any of this. Alexander always talked about you like you were partners in everything." "We were partners, at least I thought we were." Sarah gathered up the documents. "Can I keep copies of these?" "I was hoping you'd ask for them. You're going to need them." After Jennifer left, Sarah called Michael Torres and scheduled an emergency meeting. Then she called her sister at work. "Lisa, I need you to come home. We need to talk." "What happened? Are the kids okay?" "The kids are fine, but Alexander isn't just a cheater, he's also a thief." When Lisa arrived home an hour later, Sarah explained everything Jennifer had told her. Lisa listened in stunned silence, occasionally shaking her head in disbelief. $60,000, Lisa said when Sarah finished. "He stole $60,000 from his company to pay for his affair. And he used my name to do it. I could be charged as an accomplice if I can't prove I didn't know about it." "But you have proof now. That woman from his company just gave you proof." "I have proof that he forged my signature. But I need to prove that our marriage was solid enough that he wouldn't have hidden this from me if we were really partners. I need to show that he was deliberately deceiving me." Lisa leaned back in her chair thinking. What about your friends, the other couples you socialized with? They could testify that you seemed happy, that there were no signs of trouble. Sarah thought about their couple friends, people like Rebecca and her husband Tom, who had known them for years. People who had seen them at dinner parties and barbecues, who had watched them parent their children together. Rebecca, Sarah said suddenly. Rebecca always joked that Alexander and I were the most solid couple she knew. She used to say we were her relationship goals. Perfect, call her. Rebecca Chen had been Sarah's best friend since college. They had been each other's bridesmaids, had supported each other through pregnancies and career changes, had shared countless bottles of wine while discussing their hopes and fears. When Sarah called and asked if they could meet for coffee, Rebecca immediately agreed. They met at their usual spot, a small cafe near Rebecca's office. You look terrible, Rebecca said as soon as she saw Sarah. What's going on? Sarah told her everything. The midnight eviction, the affair, the financial fraud. Rebecca's expression went from concern to shock to fury. That son of a bitch, Rebecca said when Sarah finished. I cannot believe he would do this to you and the kids. Rebecca, I need you to do something for me. I need you to write down everything you remember about Alexander and me as a couple. Every conversation we had about our marriage, every time you thought we seemed happy together, every time Alexander talked about our future. Of course, but Sarah, are you sure you're okay? You seem different. I am different. The woman who got kicked out of her house 3 nights ago doesn't exist anymore. The woman sitting here now isn't going to let Alexander destroy our family without consequences. Rebecca reached across the table and squeezed Sarah's hand. Good, it's about time someone made that man face reality. That afternoon, Sarah sat down with her laptop and began writing her own account of their marriage. Not the fairy tale version she had been telling herself, but the truth. The times Alexander had been dismissive of her opinions, the way he had gradually taken over all their financial decisions, the subtle ways he had isolated her from friends and made her dependent on him. As she wrote, Sarah realized that the signs had been there all along. She had just been too trusting, too willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, too afraid of conflict to push back when things didn't feel right. But she wasn't afraid anymore. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford with 2 children depending on her. When Tyler and Emma got home from their day at Lisa's neighbor's house, Sarah sat them down for a serious conversation. I want you both to know that none of this is your fault, she began. Sometimes adults make bad choices, and those choices hurt other people. But you two are the most important thing in my life, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you feel safe and loved. Are you and Daddy getting divorced? Tyler asked quietly. Yes, we are, but that doesn't change the fact that both Daddy and I love you very much. Emma climbed into Sarah's lap. Will we still have Christmas? We'll still have Christmas and birthdays and all the things that matter. They might be different than before, but we'll still be a family, just a different kind of family. That night after the children were asleep, Sarah continued working on her documentation. She was building a case not just for the divorce, but for the fraud charges that were likely coming Alexander's way. He had thought he was so clever, living his double life while keeping his wife in the dark. But he had underestimated Sarah's intelligence and determination. He was about to learn that the quiet, accommodating woman he had married was capable of fighting back, and when Sarah Williams fought, she fought to win. 1 week after the midnight betrayal, Sarah sat in Michael Torr's office wearing her best business suit and the steely expression that had become her new normal. Spread across the conference table were bank statements, insurance documents, and a thick folder of printed text messages that painted a picture of Alexander's deception. This is actually better evidence than I usually see in cases like this, Michael said, reviewing the documents. The forged signatures alone are enough to establish financial fraud. Combined with the timeline of the affair and the midnight incident with your children, we have a very strong case. What kind of settlement are we looking at? Given the circumstances, I think we can get you primary custody, the house, and a significant portion of the marital assets. The fraud complicates things in your favor. Alexander won't want this information becoming public record if he can avoid it. Sarah nodded, but her expression didn't soften. I don't want to settle quietly. I want him to face consequences for what he's done. Michael leaned back in his chair. Sarah, I have to ask, are you sure about this approach? Divorce proceedings can get very ugly and you have children to consider. My children were forced to hide in their own backyard, while their father brought his mistress into our home. They've already seen ugly, now they need to see justice. All right then, let's talk strategy. They spent the next 2 hours planning the divorce petition. Michael would file for adultery, financial misconduct, and emotional abuse. They would request full custody with supervised visitation for Alexander, the house, and compensation for the stolen funds. What about his job? Sarah asked. Will the insurance fraud affect the divorce case? If he's charged criminally, it will definitely work in our favor. But even if the company handles it internally, we can use it to establish a pattern of dishonesty and financial irresponsibility. As they were finishing up, Sarah's phone rang. Alexander's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Michael advised, but put it on speaker. I want to hear what he has to say. Sarah accepted the call, her hand steady despite her racing heart. Sarah, thank God, we need to talk. This has gone on long enough. I don't think we have anything to talk about, Alexander. Of course we do, we're married. We have children together. You can't just disappear with my kids because you're upset about a mistake I made. Sarah looked at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. A mistake, Sarah's voice was ice cold. Is that what you're calling 2 years of lying, stealing, and adultery, a mistake? Sarah, you're being dramatic. Yes, I made some poor choices, but we can work through this. Marriage is about forgiveness. Marriage is about trust, Alexander. And you destroyed that when you kicked your children out of their own home so you could bring your girlfriend into our bed. There was silence on the other end of the line. Who told you about that? Alexander asked finally. She did. Your girlfriend texted me while my children and I were sitting in our backyard in the middle of the night. Sarah, let me explain. No, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Don't contact me again unless it's about the children, and even then, it goes through my attorney. Sarah hung up and looked at Michael. How was that? Perfect. He just admitted to the affair and didn't deny the midnight incident. If he's smart, he'll get his own lawyer immediately. But Alexander wasn't smart. Over the next few days, he sent dozens of texts and voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. He promised to end the affair, to pay back the stolen money, to go to marriage counseling. Sarah saved every message. Rebecca stopped by Lisa's house that evening with a bottle of wine and a thick envelope. I wrote down everything I could remember, Rebecca said, handing Sarah the envelope. 20 years of friendship documented, including the time 2 years ago when Alexander told Tom he was thinking about leaving you but didn't want to lose the house. Sarah stared at her. He said what? Tom didn't tell me until yesterday when I asked him to think back. Alexander apparently said he felt trapped in the marriage but couldn't afford to divorce you because you'd get half of everything. So instead of divorcing me honestly, he decided to steal money and have an affair. Looks that way. Tom feels terrible that he didn't say anything, but you know how men are about that stuff. They think it's not their business. Sarah opened the envelope and read through Rebecca's detailed account. It was damning, a chronicle of a marriage where one partner was planning his escape while the other remained completely unaware. There's something else, Rebecca said hesitantly. I did some digging about Alexander's girlfriend. Her name is Crystal Porter, and she works at that new marketing firm downtown. I don't want to know about hers. Yes, you do, because she's been posting about their relationship on social media for months. Pictures of them together, expensive gifts he gave her, trips they took, all time-stamped and geotagged. Rebecca pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a series of Instagram posts. Crystal Porter was younger than Sarah, probably in her late 20s, with long blonde hair and a taste for expensive restaurants. But what made Sarah's stomach drop wasn't Crystal's appearance, it was the photos themselves. Alexander with his arm around Crystal at a resort Sarah recognized from their anniversary 2 years ago. Alexander giving Crystal jewelry that looked suspiciously like pieces Sarah had admired, but been told they couldn't afford. He took her to our anniversary resort, Sarah said quietly. The same weekend you thought he was at a work conference in Denver, Rebecca confirmed. Sarah felt something crack inside her chest, not her heart this time, but her last remaining illusion about the man she had married. Alexander hadn't just betrayed her, he had replaced her entirely, living the life he wanted with Crystal while keeping Sarah around to maintain his respectable image. I want copies of all of these, Sarah said. Already done. I screenshot everything and saved it to a flash drive. That night Sarah called Michael Torres at home. I have more evidence, she said without preamble. What kind of evidence? Social media posts from his girlfriend showing their relationship timeline, including photos of them at a resort during a weekend when he told me he was at a work conference. Sarah, this is exactly what we need. Can you bring everything to my office first thing tomorrow? I'll be there at 8 a.m. After she hung up, Sarah sat in Lisa's kitchen with a cup of tea, thinking about the woman she had been just 1 week ago. That woman had been naive, trusting, willing to overlook red flags in the name of preserving her marriage. This woman was different. This woman understood that some betrayals were too deep to forgive, that some actions had consequences that couldn't be undone with apologies and promises. Alexander had made his choice when he decided to live a double life. He had chosen Crystal's happiness over his family's well-being. He had chosen his own desires over his children's security. Now Sarah was making her choice. She was choosing to fight for her children's future, for her own dignity and for justice, and she was going to win. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was an unknown number, but Sarah answered anyway. Mrs. Williams. This is Detective Janet Rodriguez from the Financial Crimes Unit. We need to speak with you about your husband's activities at Hartwell Insurance. Sarah smiled grimly. Alexander's world was about to get much smaller. Detective Rodriguez, I've been waiting for your call. 2 weeks after her world exploded, Sarah sat across from Detective Janet Rodriguez in the sterile conference room at the police station. The detective was a serious woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she had seen every type of financial crime imaginable. Mrs. Williams, I want to be clear about why you're here, Detective Rodriguez began. Your husband has been under investigation for embezzlement and insurance fraud. Your name appears on several forged documents, which is why we need to establish your involvement or lack thereof. I had no involvement in any of it, Sarah said firmly. I didn't even know about the affair until 2 weeks ago, let alone the financial crimes. Tell me about your marriage's financial arrangements. Who handled the money? Sarah explained how Alexander had gradually taken control of their finances over the years, how he had convinced her that he was better with numbers, how she had trusted him completely. Did you ever sign blank insurance forms? Never. I'm very careful about what I sign. I work in accounting myself. I would never sign a blank document. Detective Rodriguez pulled out a folder and spread several insurance applications across the table. These all have your signature, but they were filed for policies you say you've never seen. Sarah examined the signatures carefully. They looked like hers, but something was off about the letter formations. He traced my signature, she said suddenly. Look at this in Sarah. I always connect it to the A with a little flourish, but these don't have that connection. And the W in Williams, I always make the middle point higher than the outside points, but these are all the same height. Detective Rodriguez leaned forward with interest. You're very observant. We had a handwriting analyst reach the same conclusion. So what happens now? We're building a case against your husband for embezzlement, insurance fraud, and identity theft. The identity theft charge is because he used your name without permission. We'll also be investigating his girlfriend to see if she was aware that the money was stolen. Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction. Crystal Porter might find herself facing charges too. How much money are we talking about total? Based on our investigation so far, around $85,000 over 2 years. But we're still digging. $85,000. Sarah thought about all the times she had clipped coupons, shopped sales, and worried about their budget while Alexander was stealing nearly 6 figures to fund his secret life. What do you need from me? Sarah asked. "We need documentation of your financial knowledge and involvement in family finances. We need proof that you were kept in the dark about these transactions. And we need you to testify when this goes to trial." "I'll do whatever you need." After leaving the police station, Sarah drove to her first appointment with Dr. Patricia Hayes, a therapist who specialized in helping families cope with betrayal and divorce. Michael Torres had recommended her, saying that having professional support would strengthen Sarah's custody case. Dr. Hayes was a gentle woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a calming presence. Her office was filled with soft lighting and comfortable furniture that made Sarah feel safe for the first time in weeks. "Tell me what brings you here," Dr. Hayes said simply. Sarah told her story again, but this time she included details she had kept to herself. The way Alexander had made her feel stupid when she questioned expenses, the gradual erosion of her confidence in financial matters, the subtle ways he had isolated her from friends who might have noticed changes in his behavior. "What you're describing is financial abuse," Dr. Hayes said when Sarah finished. "It's a form of emotional abuse where one partner uses money to control and manipulate the other." "I never thought of it that way. I just thought he was better with numbers." "That's exactly what he wanted you to think. By making you doubt your own financial judgment, he was able to steal money without you questioning it." Dr. Hayes gave Sarah several workbooks and asked her to start documenting not just the recent betrayal, but the patterns of control and manipulation that had been building for years. That afternoon, Sarah met Rebecca for lunch at a small restaurant near Rebecca's office. Rebecca had been doing her own investigation into Alexander's activities. "I talked to Susan Martinez," Rebecca said, referring to another friend from their social circle. "She said Alexander hit on her at Tom's birthday party last year. She didn't say anything because she thought it was just drunk behavior, but now she realizes it was part of a pattern." Sarah felt another piece of her old life crumble. How many other women were there? "I don't know, but Susan said she'd be willing to testify about it if you need her to." "I might need her to. Michael says the more evidence we have of Alexander's character, the stronger the custody case becomes." Rebecca leaned forward. "Sarah, I have to ask, are you okay? I mean really okay, because you seem almost too calm about all this." Sarah considered the question. Was she okay? 2 weeks ago, she would have been devastated by each new revelation. Now she felt detached, analytical, like she was solving a puzzle rather than living through the destruction of her marriage. "I think I'm in survival mode," Sarah said honestly. "I can't afford to fall apart because Tyler and Emma need me to be strong. The grief will come later. Right now, I just need to win." That evening, Sarah sat with Tyler and Emma at Lisa's kitchen table, helping them with homework. Tyler was struggling with math, and Emma kept asking questions about when they could go home. "Mom, is our house still our house?" Emma asked while working on a spelling worksheet. "It's still our house, baby. But we might get a different house soon. Would you like that?" "I want my own room again. Aunt Lisa's house is nice, but I miss my toys." Sarah's heart ached. Her children were living out of suitcases, sleeping in an unfamiliar room, and missing their belongings because of their father's selfish choices. "We'll get your toys soon," Sarah promised, "and you'll have your own room again." After the children went to bed, Sarah opened her laptop and continued working on the timeline Dr. Hayes had suggested. She was documenting every instance of financial manipulation, every time Alexander had dismissed her concerns, every red flag she had ignored. As she worked, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Crystal. Can we please talk? I think Alexander has been lying to both of us." Sarah stared at the message for a long moment. Part of her was curious about what Crystal had to say. But a larger part of her felt nothing but disgust for the woman who had been sleeping with her husband for 2 years. She deleted the message without responding. 10 minutes later, another text arrived. "I know you don't want to talk to me, but I have information about Alexander's finances that might help you. He's been lying about his income and hiding money from both of us." This time, Sarah hesitated. Information about hidden assets could be crucial for the divorce settlement. She forwarded the text to Michael Torres with a note. "Should I respond to this?" Michael called her within minutes. Don't respond directly, he advised. But if she has information about hidden assets, we need it. Let me handle this. I'll have my investigator contact her. You have an investigator. James Morrison, former police detective, now private investigator. He specializes in financial crimes and hidden assets. I was going to suggest hiring him anyway. Do it. I want to know everything about Alexander's finances. Every account, every investment, every penny he's hidden. After hanging up with Michael, Sarah returned to her timeline. She was up to 18 months ago, when Alexander had started working late more often and had begun criticizing her appearance. You should join a gym, he had said one evening. You're not getting any younger. At the time, she had been hurt but had taken it as concern for her health. Now she realized it was the beginning of his campaign to make her feel insecure while he pursued other women. Sarah's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Lisa calling from her bedroom. I just wanted to check on you, Lisa said. You've been very quiet tonight. I'm working on documentation for the lawyer. Trying to piece together when Alexander's behavior changed. And I'm realizing that he started emotionally abusing me long before he started the affair. He just did it so gradually that I didn't recognize it. Oh, Sarah. The thing is, I'm not even angry about that anymore. I'm angry that he involved Tyler and Emma. I'm angry that he traumatized our children for his own selfish desires. That's unforgivable. You're going to get through this, and you're going to be stronger on the other side. Sarah hoped her sister was right. Because right now, she felt like she was drowning in revelations about the man she had loved for 12 years. Every day brought new evidence that their entire marriage had been built on lies. But she wasn't giving up. For Tyler and Emma, for her own future, for justice, she would keep fighting. Alexander had underestimated her once. He wouldn't get the chance to do it again. 3 weeks after the midnight betrayal, Sarah sat in the school counselor's office across from Mrs. Jennifer Walsh, who had been working with Emma and Tyler since they returned to school. The news wasn't good. Tyler has been getting into fights, Mrs. Walsh explained gently. Nothing serious, but he's been more aggressive than usual. And Emma has been having trouble concentrating. She's asked to call you several times during the day. Sarah felt her chest tighten with guilt. She had been so focused on building her legal case that she hadn't fully grasped how deeply this was affecting her children. What can I do to help them? They need stability and routine, and they need to know that the adults in their lives are going to keep them safe. Tyler especially is struggling with anger toward his father. Has he said anything specific? Mrs. Walsh consulted her notes. Yesterday he told his teacher that his daddy is a liar who hurt his mommy. When she tried to redirect the conversation, he said, "My daddy made us sleep outside so his girlfriend could sleep in our house." Sarah closed her eyes. Tyler understood more than she had realized. What about Emma? Emma is internalizing her stress. She's been asking if she did something wrong, if that's why Daddy doesn't live with you anymore. She needs reassurance that none of this is her fault. After leaving the school, Sarah drove to Dr. Hayes' office for her own appointment, but this time she brought Tyler and Emma with her. Dr. Hayes had suggested family sessions to help the children process their emotions. Can you tell me how you're feeling about everything that's happened? Dr. Hayes asked Tyler gently. Tyler sat quietly for a long moment, then exploded. I hate him, I hate Daddy. He made Mommy cry and he made us sleep outside and he doesn't care about us anymore. Sarah reached for Tyler's hand, but he pulled away. And I hate that stupid woman too. She took our daddy away. Tyler, it's okay to be angry, Dr. Hayes said calmly. Your feelings are completely normal, but can you tell me what you miss most about your daddy? Tyler's anger crumbled into sadness. I miss when he would help me with my homework, and when we would play catch in the backyard, but now I don't want to play catch with him ever again. Emma, who had been coloring quietly, looked up. Is Daddy coming to my dance recital next month? Sarah exchanged glances with Dr. Hayes. Alexander had been asking about visitation, but Sarah wasn't ready to trust him alone with the children. We're still figuring out how visits with Daddy will work, Sarah said carefully. but I promise that someone who loves you will be at your recital. I want Daddy to come, but I want him to sit far away from you, Emma said matter-of-factly. Because when he sits near you, you get sad. The wisdom and pain in her 8-year-old's voice broke Sarah's heart. That evening, Sarah called Michael Tors to discuss visitation arrangements. Alexander has been pushing for overnight visits, Michael said, but given the circumstances, I think we should start with supervised daytime visits. I don't trust him to put the children's needs first. What if he brings them around his girlfriend? We can include a clause in the temporary custody order that prohibits him from introducing the children to romantic partners without court approval. Do that. And I want the visits supervised by a professional, not just by family members. After hanging up, Sarah found Tyler and Emma watching a movie in Lisa's living room. She sat between them on the couch, and both children immediately cuddled close to her. I want to talk to you both about something important, Sarah said during a commercial break. You're going to have visits with Daddy soon. Tyler tensed. I don't want to see him. I know you're angry with him and that's okay, but he's still your father and he loves you. If he loves us, why did he make us go outside? Emma asked. Sarah chose her words carefully. Sometimes adults make very bad choices. Daddy made some bad choices that hurt our family, but that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. Will you be there when we see him? Tyler asked. No, but a nice lady will be there to make sure everyone is safe and happy, and you can call me anytime you want to come home. Over the next few days, Sarah worked with Dr. Hayes to prepare the children for their first supervised visit with Alexander. They practiced what to say if they felt uncomfortable, how to ask for breaks, and how to express their feelings without being disrespectful. The visit was scheduled for Saturday afternoon at a family center downtown. Sarah dropped Tyler and Emma off with heavy hearts, watching them walk slowly toward the building where Alexander was waiting. 2 hours later, the supervisor called. Mrs. Williams, you can come pick up the children now. The visit went adequately, but Tyler had some difficulty. When Sarah arrived, she found Tyler sitting alone in the waiting area while Emma was still in the visitation room with Alexander. What happened? Sarah asked the supervisor, Mrs. Rodriguez. Tyler became upset when his father tried to explain why he hadn't been living at home. Mr. Williams told him that sometimes mommies and daddies need breaks from each other, and Tyler said that wasn't true, that Daddy had a girlfriend. Sarah's jaw tightened. Alexander was still lying, even to their children. Mr. Williams then became defensive and told Tyler that he was too young to understand adult relationships. Tyler said he understood that Daddy hurt Mommy and that he didn't want to visit anymore. When Emma emerged from the visitation room, she was quiet and clingy. Alexander followed her out, looking frustrated and angry. Sarah, we need to talk, he said, approaching her. No, we don't. All communication goes through our lawyers. This is about our children. Tyler is being disrespectful, and you're clearly poisoning them against me. Sarah felt her temper flare. I'm not poisoning anyone against you, Alexander. Tyler is angry because you traumatized him. That's on you, not me. Daddy, you're making Mommy upset again, Emma said quietly. Alexander's expression softened as he looked at his daughter. I'm sorry, baby. Daddy didn't mean to upset Mommy. Then why do you keep doing it? Emma asked with 8-year-old directness. Alexander had no answer for that. On the drive home, Tyler was quiet, but Emma was full of questions. Why did Daddy say you guys needed a break? You didn't go anywhere. Daddy was trying to explain things in a way that wouldn't hurt your feelings, Sarah said. But sometimes when adults try to make things sound better, they don't tell the whole truth. So Daddy was lying again. Sarah's heart ached for her daughter's lost innocence. Yes, baby. Daddy was lying again. That night after the children were asleep, Sarah called Dr. Hayes. Tyler doesn't want to see Alexander again, Sarah reported, and Emma is confused because Alexander is still lying to them. Unfortunately, this is common in cases involving infidelity. The cheating parent often continues the pattern of deception even after being caught. It's going to take time for Alexander to learn how to be honest with his children. What if he never learns? What if he keeps lying to them? Then you document it, and you use it in court. The judge will take into account which parent is more likely to act in the children's best interests. Sarah hung up feeling both sad and determined. Alexander was still putting his own comfort ahead of his children's needs, still trying to control the narrative even when it hurt Tyler and Emma. But Sarah wouldn't let him get away with it. She would protect her children from his lies, even if it meant going to war in court. Because some battles were worth fighting, and her children's well-being was worth everything. 1 month after her life imploded, Sarah sat in private investigator James Morrison's office, reviewing a stack of financial documents that painted a picture of Alexander's double life in devastating detail. James was a former detective in his 50s with a methodical approach and a talent for uncovering hidden assets. What he had found exceeded even Sarah's worst suspicions. "Your husband has been very busy," James said, spreading out bank statements across his desk. 3 separate checking accounts, 2 credit cards you don't know about, and a safety deposit box registered only in his name. Sarah studied the statements, her accounting background helping her understand the scope of Alexander's deception. "How much money are we talking about?" "In the hidden accounts, approximately $47,000, but that's not the most interesting part." James pulled out another folder. "He's been transferring money to an investment account for Crystal Porter. Over the past year, he's given her nearly $30,000. $30,000, Sarah felt sick. That's more than we spend on the kids' expenses in a year. "It gets worse, look at this." James showed her a series of bank transfers. "Every month he transfers money from your joint account to his hidden account, then to Crystal's investment account. He's been stealing from your family to set up his girlfriend's financial future." Sarah stared at the evidence of Alexander's betrayal. Not only had he been unfaithful, but he had been systematically stealing from their children's future to provide for another woman. "There's more," James continued. "I found evidence that he's been planning to leave you for at least 8 months. He's been consulting with divorce attorneys, researching how to hide assets, and even looking at apartments with Crystal. He's been planning this for 8 months. The Google searches on his work computer go back that far. How to hide money during divorce. What is wife entitled to in divorce? Can wife claim business assets? He's been planning his exit strategy while pretending to be a devoted husband." Sarah felt a cold fury building in her chest. While she had been worrying about their marriage, trying to be a better wife, planning their family's future, Alexander had been plotting to steal from her and abandon their family. What about the safety deposit box? James smiled grimly. "That's where it gets interesting. I can't access it legally, but I can tell you when he visits it. He's been there 6 times in the past month, always during his lunch break." "What do you think he's keeping in there?" "Cash, probably. Maybe jewelry or documents. People who are hiding assets often stash physical valuables where their spouses can't find them." Sarah made a mental note to discuss the safety deposit box with Michael Torres. In a divorce, both spouses were entitled to know about all marital assets. "What about Crystal Porter? What did you find out about her?" 28 years old, works in marketing, divorced once already. But here's the interesting part. She's been posting about Alexander on social media for over a year, including photos of expensive gifts and trips. James showed Sarah a series of Instagram posts on his tablet. Crystal wearing jewelry that cost more than Sarah's monthly grocery budget. Crystal at expensive restaurants Sarah had never been to. Crystal on vacation in places Alexander had told Sarah they couldn't afford to visit. "She knew he was married," Sarah said, studying the photos. "Look at the dates. This one was posted the same weekend as Emma's birthday party. He left our daughter's party early to take this woman to dinner. There's no question she knew about you. In fact, I found text messages between them, where they specifically discuss how to keep the affair secret from you." James handed Sarah a folder of printed text messages. Reading them was like being stabbed repeatedly, but Sarah forced herself to get through them. "I hate lying to Sarah," one of Crystal's messages read, "but I can't wait until you're free to be with me openly." Alexander's response: "Soon, baby, I just need to get my finances in order first. Sarah doesn't understand money like you do." Sarah's hands shook as she read message after message discussing their relationship, their future plans, and Alexander's strategy to divorce Sarah while keeping as many assets as possible. Can these text messages be used in court? Absolutely. They show premeditation, financial planning, and conspiracy to defraud you of marital assets. Sarah left James's office with a heavy heart, but a clear sense of purpose. She had the evidence she needed to prove Alexander's betrayal and financial misconduct. Now she needed to use it strategically. Her next stop was Michael Torr's office, where she spread out James's findings on the conference table. "This is a prosecutor's dream," Michael said after reviewing the evidence. "Premeditated adultery, financial fraud, and conspiracy to hide marital assets. Alexander's attorney is going to have a very difficult time defending this." "What's our next move?" "We file for an emergency hearing to freeze all assets and demand full financial disclosure. With this evidence, the judge will likely order Alexander to account for every penny he's spent in the past 2 years. And custody." With the evidence of financial abuse and the midnight incident, plus Tyler's reluctance to visit his father, I think we can get primary custody with limited supervised visitation. Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction. Alexander had thought he was so clever, planning his escape while keeping her in the dark. But his own arrogance had created a paper trail that would destroy him in court. That evening, Sarah sat with Tyler and Emma at Lisa's kitchen table, helping them with homework. Both children seemed more settled now that they had a routine, but Sarah could see the lasting effects of their father's betrayal. Tyler was more protective of her, always asking if she was okay and offering to help with tasks that used to be Alexander's responsibility. Emma had become clingy, afraid to let Sarah out of her sight for long periods. "Mom, are we going to see Daddy again this weekend?" Emma asked while working on her math homework. "I don't know yet, sweetheart. We're still figuring out the best way for you to spend time with him." Tyler looked up from his science project. "I don't want to see him, he makes me angry." "It's okay to be angry, Tyler, but Daddy is still your father and he loves you." "If he loves us, why did he steal our money to give to his girlfriend?" Sarah's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I heard you talking to Aunt Lisa last night. You said Daddy gave his girlfriend money that was supposed to be for me and Emma." Sarah realized that despite her efforts to protect her children from the worst details, they were absorbing more than she realized. "Tyler, the most important thing you need to know is that none of this is your fault. Daddy made some very bad choices, but that doesn't change how much Mommy loves you." "I know you love us," Tyler said seriously. "But I don't think Daddy does. If he loved us, he wouldn't have hurt us." Emma looked up from her homework with tears in her eyes. "I still love Daddy, but I don't want him to make you sad anymore." Sarah pulled both children close, her heart breaking for their lost innocence. Alexander's betrayal hadn't just destroyed their marriage. It had damaged their children's ability to trust, to feel secure, to believe that their father would always protect them. But Sarah would spend the rest of her life making sure Tyler and Emma knew they were loved, valued, and safe. She would build a new life for them, one based on honesty and stability instead of lies and manipulation. Alexander had made his choice when he decided to prioritize his own desires over his family's well-being. Now he would face the consequences of that choice, and Sarah would make sure those consequences were severe enough that he would never forget what he had lost. 6 weeks after the midnight betrayal, Sarah stood in the courthouse hallway waiting for the emergency hearing that would determine the immediate future of her family. She wore her best suit and carried a briefcase full of evidence that would expose Alexander's crimes to a judge. Alexander stood 30 feet away with his attorney, a sharp-dressed man named David Fletcher who specialized in defending wealthy clients in messy divorces. Alexander looked pale and stressed, nothing like the confident man who had controlled every aspect of their marriage for 12 years. "Mrs. Williams," a court clerk approached, "Judge Morrison is ready for you." Sarah followed Michael Torrs into the courtroom, her heart pounding but her resolve steady. This was the moment she had been preparing for since that terrible night in the backyard. Judge Morrison was a stern woman in her 60s with a no-nonsense demeanor and a reputation for being tough on cases involving financial fraud. This is an emergency hearing regarding the divorce petition of Sarah Williams versus Alexander Williams, the judge began. Mrs. Williams is requesting immediate asset protection and temporary custody arrangements. Mr. Torres, present your case. Michael stood and began laying out the evidence methodically: the forged insurance documents, the hidden bank accounts, the money transferred to Crystal Porter, the text messages showing premeditation. The midnight incident with the children. With each piece of evidence, Sarah watched Alexander's face grow paler. He whispered urgently to his attorney, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Your Honor, Michael concluded, Mr. Williams has systematically defrauded his wife and children while planning to abandon them for his mistress. We request immediate freezing of all assets and supervised visitation only. Judge Morrison turned to David Fletcher. How does your client respond to these allegations? Fletcher stood slowly. Your Honor, while my client admits to having an extramarital relationship, he denies any criminal financial misconduct. The money in question represents legitimate business expenses and investment strategies that his wife simply didn't understand. Sarah felt her anger flare. Even now, Alexander was lying and trying to make her look stupid. Mr. Fletcher, Judge Morrison said dryly, are you seriously arguing that forged insurance documents and secret bank accounts represent legitimate business expenses? Your Honor, we haven't had adequate time to review all the evidence presented today. We request a continuance to prepare our response. Request denied. The evidence is clear and extensive. Mr. Williams, stand up. Alexander rose shakily, his confident demeanor completely gone. Mr. Williams, you have systematically defrauded your wife, stolen from your children's future, and traumatized minor children by forcing them from their home to accommodate your mistress. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Alexander looked at his attorney, who nodded reluctantly. Your Honor, I made some mistakes, but I was trying to protect my family from a difficult situation. By stealing from them, Judge Morrison's voice was ice cold. I was planning to repay everything once the divorce was finalized. With what money, Mr. Williams? You gave $30,000 to your girlfriend and spent another $50,000 on personal expenses. Where exactly were you planning to get the money to repay your victims? Alexander had no answer. Judge Morrison reviewed her notes for a long moment before speaking. I am ordering the immediate freezing of all marital assets, Mr. Williams. You will provide a complete financial disclosure within 72 hours, including all bank accounts, investments, and the contents of your safety deposit box. You will also surrender your passport to prevent you from fleeing the jurisdiction. Sarah felt a surge of triumph. Alexander's escape plan was crumbling. Regarding custody, I am granting Mrs. Williams primary physical custody of the minor children. Mr. Williams, you will have supervised visitation for 2 hours every Saturday until further notice. These visits will be supervised by a court-appointed professional, and you are prohibited from discussing the divorce or making any disparaging comments about your wife. Your Honor, Fletcher interjected, my client has been a devoted father for 10 years. Surely he deserves more than 2 hours a week with his children. Mr. Fletcher, your client forced his children to hide in their backyard in the middle of the night, so he could bring his mistress into their home. That is not the behavior of a devoted father. The visitation schedule stands. Alexander's face crumpled. For the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah saw him realize the full consequences of his actions. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Investigation. Mr. Williams, you may very well face charges for fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. The hearing ended with Alexander looking devastated and Sarah feeling vindicated. As they left the courtroom, she heard Alexander arguing with his attorney in the hallway. You said this wouldn't happen, Alexander was saying. You said we could settle this quietly. I told you to come clean about the money, Fletcher replied. You lied to me just like you lied to your wife. Now you're facing criminal charges. Sarah walked past them without making eye contact, her head held high. But the day wasn't over. As Sarah was leaving the courthouse, she found Crystal Porter waiting by her car. Crystal was prettier in person than in her social media photos, but she looked terrified and much younger than Sarah had expected. Mrs. Williams, please, I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. Please just listen. I didn't know Alexander was still living with you when this started. He told me you were separated and living apart. Sarah stopped walking and turned to face Crystal. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him. I was lonely and he was charming and he seemed genuinely unhappy in his marriage. So you helped him steal from my children. Crystal's face went white. What do you mean? The $30,000 he gave you came from my children's college fund. Every expensive dinner, every piece of jewelry, every vacation, it was all stolen from my family. I didn't know. He said it was his money from bonuses and investments. Sarah studied Crystal's face, trying to determine if she was telling the truth. The fear in her eyes seemed genuine. It doesn't matter what you knew or didn't know, Sarah said finally. What matters is that you participated in destroying my family. My children were forced to hide in their own backyard so you could sleep in their home. Tears streamed down Crystal's face. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt children. But you did hurt them. Tyler and Emma will carry the scars of what you and Alexander did for the rest of their lives. Is there anything I can do, any way to make this right? Sarah considered the question. Part of her wanted to walk away, to have nothing more to do with the woman who had helped destroy her marriage. But another part of her recognized that Crystal might be as much a victim of Alexander's lies as she was. You can testify truthfully if you're called to court, Sarah said finally. You can tell the truth about Alexander's lies and financial deception, and you can stay away from my children. Crystal nodded frantically. I will. I'll do whatever you need. I'm returning all the money he gave me. I don't want any of it. Sarah felt surprised by Crystal's offer. All of it. Every penny. It's in an investment account and I'm liquidating it tomorrow. $32,000 including interest. I want to give it back to your children. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt something other than anger when looking at Crystal. The young woman seemed genuinely remorseful and horrified by her role in the family's destruction. Have your attorney contact mine, Sarah said. The money should go into a trust fund for Tyler and Emma's education. Crystal nodded and started to walk away, then turned back. Mrs. Williams, for what it's worth, Alexander talked about you and the children constantly. He said you were a good mother and a good person. I think he knew what he was throwing away, and I think that's why he was so angry all the time. Sarah watched Crystal drive away, feeling a complex mix of emotions. She wasn't ready to forgive the woman who had participated in her family's destruction, but she could see that Crystal was also dealing with the consequences of Alexander's manipulation. That evening, Sarah sat with Tyler and Emma at Lisa's kitchen table, helping them with homework as she had every night for 6 weeks. Mom, kids at school are saying Daddy is in trouble, Tyler said without looking up from his math. Sarah had been dreading this conversation. What kind of trouble are they saying? That he stole money and might go to jail. Sarah sighed. Daddy made some very bad choices with money that belonged to our family. Now he has to face the consequences of those choices. Will he go to jail? Emma asked quietly. I don't know, sweetheart. That's up to the judge and the police to decide. Tyler looked up at Sarah with serious eyes. I don't want him to go to jail, but I don't want him to hurt you anymore either. Daddy can't hurt us anymore, Sarah said firmly. The judge made sure of that today. Good, Emma said simply. I want Daddy to be safe, but I want us to be safe more. Sarah hugged both her children, marveling at their resilience and wisdom. They had been through more trauma in 6 weeks than most children experience in a lifetime, but they were adapting and healing. Alexander had lost everything that mattered: his family, his reputation, his freedom, and his future. The man who had once controlled every aspect of their lives was now facing criminal charges and supervised visitation with his own children. Justice wasn't complete yet, but it was coming, and Sarah would be there to see it through to the end. 3 months after the midnight betrayal, Sarah sat in the courtroom for the final divorce hearing, watching Alexander sign away his rights to the home where they had raised their children. His signature was shaky, his face drawn with the stress of impending criminal charges. Judge Morrison reviewed the settlement agreement one final time. Mrs. Williams, you are awarded primary custody of the minor children, the marital home, and 60% of all marital assets. Mr. Williams, you will pay child support in the amount of $2,800 per month, and will have supervised visitation every other Saturday, until the children turn 18 or request otherwise. Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction. After 12 years of marriage, she was finally free from Alexander's lies and manipulation. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, the court notes that Mr. Williams has agreed to pay restitution in the amount of $85,000 for funds stolen from marital accounts. This money will be placed in educational trust funds for Tyler and Emma Williams. The money Crystal had returned, combined with the funds Alexander was being forced to repay, would secure her children's college educations. What Alexander had intended to steal from their future had been returned with interest. Mr. Williams, do you understand the terms of this agreement? Alexander's voice was barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Williams, are you satisfied with these terms? Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Judge Morrison signed the final decree, officially ending Sarah's marriage to Alexander Williams. As they left the courtroom, Sarah felt lighter than she had in months. Michael Torres walked her to the parking garage, carrying the box of legal documents that represented her new life. How do you feel? He asked. Free, Sarah said simply. For the first time in 12 years, I feel completely free. What's next for you? Sarah smiled, thinking about the plans she had been making. I'm starting my own accounting firm. I've already signed 3 clients, and Rebecca is helping me with the marketing. That's wonderful. You deserve to build something that's entirely yours. As Sarah drove home to the house that was now legally hers, she reflected on how much had changed in 3 months. The woman who had cowered in the backyard that October night was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and completely unwilling to be anyone's victim. Tyler and Emma were waiting for her when she arrived home, both excited to hear about the court hearing. Is it over? Tyler asked. Are you really divorced now? Yes, it's over. We're officially a family of 3 now. Good, Emma said, hugging Sarah tightly. I like our family better this way. That evening, Sarah called Dr. Hayes to share the news about the divorce being finalized. How are you feeling about everything? Dr. Hayes asked. Relieved, vindicated, ready to start the next chapter of our lives. And the children. They're doing better than I expected. Tyler hasn't asked to see Alexander in weeks, and Emma seems more relaxed now that she knows we're staying in our house. What about Alexander? How is he handling the outcome? Sarah considered the question. Alexander had looked broken in court today, nothing like the confident man who had once controlled every aspect of their lives. I think he's finally understanding what he's lost. But it's too late for regrets now. 2 weeks later, Sarah received a call that she had been expecting but dreading. Mrs. Williams, this is Detective Rodriguez. Alexander Williams has been formally charged with embezzlement, fraud, and identity theft. His trial is scheduled for next month. What does that mean for me and the children? You may be called to testify, but we have enough evidence from the company records and financial documents that your testimony might not be necessary. The case is very strong. Sarah felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that justice was being served, sadness that her children's father would likely go to prison. The trial lasted 3 days. Sarah attended every session, watching as prosecutor after prosecutor laid out the evidence of Alexander's crimes. The financial records, the forged documents, the testimony from his coworkers who had noticed suspicious activity. Crystal Porter testified on the second day, admitting her role in the affair but claiming ignorance about the stolen money. She was visibly shaking as she described how Alexander had lied to her about his marriage and finances. Alexander's attorney tried to paint him as a man who had made mistakes but wasn't a criminal. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Judge Patricia Chen sentenced Alexander to 3 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 18 months if he completed financial responsibility courses and paid full restitution. As Alexander was led away in handcuffs, he looked back at Sarah one last time. She saw regret in his eyes, but also something else, surprise that the quiet, accommodating woman he had married had been capable of bringing him down so completely. Sarah felt no satisfaction in seeing her children's father led to prison, but she felt justice had been served. That night, she tucked Tyler and Emma into bed in their own rooms, in their own house, surrounded by their own belongings. "Mom, is Daddy going to jail for a long time?" Emma asked. "Daddy is going to have to stay in a special place for a while where he can think about the bad choices he made and learn to make better ones." "Will he be okay?" "Yes, baby. He'll be safe and he'll have people to help him." Tyler, who had been quiet all day, finally spoke up. "I'm sad that Daddy is going to jail, but I'm not sad that he can't hurt us anymore." Sarah hugged both her children close. "It's okay to have complicated feelings about all this. Daddy will always be your father, and it's okay to love him and be angry with him at the same time." "I love you, Mom," Emma whispered. "You're the best mom in the world." "I love you too, sweetheart, both of you, and I promise that no one will ever hurt our family again." As Sarah turned off the lights and headed to her own room, the room that was now entirely hers, she reflected on the journey from that terrible October night to this moment of peace and security. Alexander had thought he could have it all: his family's stability and his mistress's excitement, his wife's loyalty and his girlfriend's passion, his children's love and his freedom from responsibility. Instead, he had lost everything. His freedom, his family, his reputation, his future. He would spend the next few years in prison, and when he got out, his children would be teenagers who barely remembered the father who had abandoned them for another woman. Meanwhile, Sarah had built a new life from the ashes of her old one. She had her children, her home, her growing business, and most importantly, her self-respect. The midnight betrayal that had destroyed her marriage had also revealed her own strength. The woman who had been forced to hide in her backyard had emerged as someone who wouldn't be intimidated, manipulated, or defeated. Justice had been served, but more than that, Sarah had learned that she was capable of protecting herself and her children from anyone who tried to harm them. And that knowledge would serve her well in the years to come. 1 year after the midnight betrayal, Sarah stood in the conference room of her new accounting firm, looking out at the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Williams Financial Services had grown from a one-woman operation in her home office to a thriving business with 4 employees and 23 clients. "The Peterson audit is complete," her associate Maria announced, setting a thick folder on Sarah's desk. "Everything looks good. They're very happy with our work." Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment that had nothing to do with anyone else's approval. Every client, every successful project, every dollar earned was proof of her own capabilities and determination. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Lunch tomorrow, I have news." Sarah typed back, "Yes, the usual place." Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Tyler and Emma were thriving in school, both having returned to their normal, happy personalities as the trauma of the divorce faded. Tyler had joined the school basketball team and was making new friends. Emma was excelling in her dance classes and had even performed a solo in the spring recital. Alexander had been released from prison 2 months early for good behavior, but his contact with the children remained minimal. Tyler had finally agreed to occasional phone calls but refused in-person visits. Emma spoke to him briefly on holidays but seemed indifferent to their conversations. Sarah had worried about how their father's absence would affect them long-term, but Dr. Hayes had reassured her that children were remarkably resilient when they felt safe and loved. "You've created a stable, honest environment for them," Dr. Hayes had said during their last family session. "That's exactly what they needed to heal." The next day, Sarah met Rebecca for lunch at their favorite cafe. Rebecca was practically glowing with excitement. "I have news," Rebecca announced before they had even ordered. "Tom and I are getting married." Sarah felt a surge of joy for her best friend. "That's wonderful. When?" "Next spring." And I want you to be my maid of honor." Of course I would be honored. As they talked about wedding plans, Sarah felt grateful for the friendships that had sustained her through the darkest period of her life. Rebecca, Lisa, Dr. Hayes, even her new business associates, she was surrounded by people who genuinely cared about her success and happiness. "How are you doing?" Rebecca asked eventually. "Really doing?" Sarah considered the question. A year ago she would have answered based on everyone else's expectations. Now she answered honestly. "I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy. I wake up every morning knowing that my life belongs to me, that my decisions are my own, that no one is lying to me or manipulating me. And the kids, they're amazing. Stronger than I ever expected. Tyler scored 15 points in his last basketball game, and Emma is learning to play piano. They're building their own lives, their own dreams." "Any thoughts about dating?" Sarah laughed. "Not even a little bit. I'm too busy building my business and raising my children. Maybe someday, but not anytime soon." After lunch, Sarah drove to Tyler and Emma's school for the parent-teacher conferences she now attended alone. Both children were excelling academically and socially. "Tyler has shown remarkable leadership skills this year," his teacher reported. "He's always willing to help other students, and he's become very protective of kids who seem upset or lonely." Emma's teacher had similar praise. "Emma is one of the most empathetic children I've ever taught. She has a gift for making other people feel included and valued." Sarah felt proud of her children's compassion and strength. They had learned from their trauma, becoming more caring and resilient rather than bitter or fearful. That evening, as Sarah was reviewing financial reports for her business, Emma appeared in the doorway of her home office. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." Emma climbed into the chair across from Sarah's desk, looking serious. "Do you ever miss being married to Daddy?" It was a question Sarah had been expecting, but still found difficult to answer honestly without hurting her daughter's feelings. "I miss the good parts of being married to Daddy," Sarah said carefully. "I miss having a partner to help with decisions and share experiences with, but I don't miss the lies or the feeling that I couldn't trust him." "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" "Maybe someday. But only if I find someone who treats me and you, and Tyler with respect and honesty." Emma nodded solemnly. "I think you should marry someone who makes you laugh a lot." Sarah smiled. "That's excellent advice. Someone who makes us all laugh." "And someone who likes basketball," Tyler added from the doorway where he had been listening. "In case I make varsity next year." "Definitely someone who likes basketball," Sarah agreed, pulling both children into a hug. As she tucked them into bed that night, Sarah reflected on how much their family had changed and grown. They had gone from being a traditional nuclear family to something smaller but stronger, more honest and more connected. The midnight betrayal that had torn apart their old life had ultimately led to something better. A family built on truth instead of lies, on mutual respect instead of control, on genuine love instead of obligation. Later that evening, Sarah stood in her backyard, the same backyard where she had once sat shivering with her children, while Alexander entertained his mistress in their home. Now it was a place of peace, where Tyler practiced basketball shots and Emma had planted a small flower garden. The pain of that October night had faded, replaced by pride in what she had built from the wreckage. She had not only survived Alexander's betrayal but had used it as fuel to create a better life for herself and her children. Sarah's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was an unknown number, but she answered it. "Sarah. This is Crystal Porter. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that Alexander contacted me yesterday." Sarah felt her muscles tense. What did he want? He wanted to get back together. He said he had learned from his mistakes and wanted another chance. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that some mistakes are too big to forgive. I told him he destroyed the most precious thing in his life when he betrayed you and hurt your children." Sarah felt surprised by Crystal's response. "Thank you for telling me." "Sarah, I know I don't have the right to say this, but I've spent the past year thinking about what happened. Alexander didn't just cheat on you, he emotionally abused you for years." The way he talked about you made you doubt yourself, controlled your finances. That wasn't love. You're better off without him." After hanging up, Sarah realized that Crystal was right. The betrayal hadn't just been about the affair. It had been about years of subtle manipulation and control that she had only recognized in hindsight. But now she was free from all of it. Free to make her own decisions, to trust her own judgment, to build a life based on her own values and priorities. As Sarah locked up the house and turned off the lights, she felt a deep sense of contentment. Tomorrow she would wake up in her own home, take her children to school, run her successful business, and make decisions that were entirely her own. Alexander was in the past, where he belonged. The future stretched ahead, full of possibilities and promise. The woman who had been forced to hide in her backyard that terrible October night was gone forever. In her place was someone stronger, wiser, and completely unafraid. Sarah Williams had not just survived betrayal, she had triumphed over it. And that triumph belonged entirely to her.